When I think about community and we think about where we've come from as an organization, where we started, community for many of us starts someplace that goes beyond our business. And if we pause and we really are present for just a moment and we reflect on this idea of community, many of us can go back to a place and we could think about where maybe we grew up. Maybe it's our old family home. Maybe it's our old childhood neighborhood. Maybe it's a time with our aunt and uncles. Maybe it's time with our grandparents. Maybe it's that favorite restaurant, that we always remember going to as a family. But in that word community is something incredibly powerful. And when you think about that word, and if you pause and allow yourself to really feel that word, it represents something so much deeper, something so much more meaningful than just a neighborhood or a place. It's a feeling that resonates with us years later, that stays with us throughout our journey. My journey began in a community by the name of Tucson, Arizona. And we are multiple generations in the state of Arizona on both my mom's side of the family and my father's side. My sister and I, Misty, had the unique opportunity to grow up in our family business. My father purchased an antique shop in 1971 by the name of Country Emporium Antiques. And our bedroom windows literally looked into our antique shop. So every morning when I would wake up, I would look into our antique shop and my dad would be doing what we would do for advertising at that stage of our antique shop, and that was emptying out half of our merchandise from the store into our dirt parking lot. And in front of the antique shop, we had an old stagecoach from the 1800s. We had an old baggage cart, from the railroad days. And then we had an old Mexican carreta or ox cart that we would keep up front as well. But we would load up those wagons and the ox carts with merchandise. We specialized in cowboy, Indian, and Native American artifacts. And I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever growing up and seeing your mom and dad at home every day, working in this antique shop and having strangers from our community pull up and then just come on into our home and talk to us about whatever piece of merchandise that they were searching for, or relics, or really just, I would say, more so history. But what I saw there in that community, and what I saw that Country Emporium represented in our neighborhood and in our town and in the Southwest, wasn't really about our products. It wasn't really about the wagon wheels or the spurs or the brand irons as much as it was about the story, as much as it was about the history and the experience that between my mom and my dad they created. And if you look at that antique shop, against all odds, it survived for over 35 plus years. I realize now more than ever, our success wasn't due to some big target that we reached, but due to an experience that we created. And our product wasn't in what we sold, it was in that environment, it was in that community, it was in that experience that we created. That when they came into Country Emporium, they felt it. And it connected with our audience in a way to where they kept coming back. Despite all the growth that happened around us, all the competition, eBay, Craigslist, e-commerce, Country Emporium still stood. And when you start to think about small business and you think about our success in hearing healthcare, with all of the continued challenges and growth and obstacles and opportunities that come in year over year, we're still standing. Why? Not because the name of a product that we sell or a price point that we sell that product at, but an experience that is truly unique in the four wall that you operate in a community that you've invested in, and in return, they are investing in you. Since the very first moment I met Brandon, he was fully committed to this idea of we were going to create this organization based around the members. You could see with Brandon, it wasn't about this fancy business case. There was no business plan, but it was about this commitment, and a commitment that we were going to go out and create something that was going to be more of a movement than it was a business. That we're going to create something that was around people and bringing teams, resources, and tools to be able to help support them and having a stronger playbook or practice and being able to compete against the market dynamics. And as somebody who grew up in small business, it really resonated with me. Every day was the unknown. every day you were having to truly listen, and listen in a way to where it was about a single conversation that we had that gave us insight. That insight that we gained from that one conversation, we were going to use to innovate and build something. And as Audigy started to grow, and as you started to support us and invested in us as our members and our partners, we started to be able to invest in the first round of services that we focused in on, which was really more of, I would say, a consultant type relationship. We were here to provide some ideas and some recommendations. And as we started to grow from that, we realized that there was this real tangible need that a lot of us at a practice level wanted more, right? We wanted more than just some ideas. We wanted more than just some recommendations. We would love to be able to actually have some deeper level of engagement. And that's where this whole SBU idea, or the strategic business units, kind of came about in 2008 and 2009, was what if we could actually be more of a teammate and a partner to our members and to their teams, to their staff. How awesome would it be to be able to finally have the ability to start assisting some of our members and their teams in some of these core areas of marketing or operations or finance. And probably around 2012, we realized that we could only scale this so far. And that when you think about business, 100%, the first and the core ingredient is always people. It's always culture, right? It's the human element that creates this unique feel, flavor, and touch that is extraordinary in what we offer. That's this high value proposition. Second to that, though, is we clearly need consistency. We need a level of predictability in what we're building and creating, and therefore we need process. We need best practices. We need something that ensures that at every critical touch point, we flawlessly execute and deliver, not only on what was expected, but hopefully we exceed the expectation. Third is then we're able to start to attain our product or our outcome. And when we think about our product, I would say for many years, we thought about our product in the way of some of our tools that we offered our members. But those tools were still very tactical. They were still very transactional. So now fast forwarding from 2012 and 2013, when we started really kind of delivering more in the way of those tools, where today, going into 2019, we were much more of a platform model. And we've spent the last 5 years really taking our consulting with great people, our tools with great services, to now how do we start creating a product that goes even deeper, to where we have a much more meaningful infrastructure that we can create a platform for our members, their staff, to really engage with, that's holistic in the overall business needs and their practice needs, not tactical or transactional and one-off calls. So rolling into 2019, we had actually had an extraordinary year, and going into 2020, everyone was feeling extremely excited and passionate about where 2020 was going to potentially end up. In January, February, we were off to a great start. And then March rolls in. And as COVID started to kind of come about, none of us really understood it. None of us really necessarily knew what it was going to represent or not. So it was the second week of March, and Susan comes and finds me, and I was, doing my usual wandering the halls of Audigy, popping in meetings, checking on the team, seeing what's going on. And she says, I just received an email from GN Global, saying that there's a mandatory GN North America call for all 5 subsidiaries and their presidents. And the call is going to be tomorrow. Right, and it's on coronavirus readiness. And in this discussion, they said, look, some of the information that's being shared with us is looking like this could be quite serious. And therefore, we want to ask you, Mason, if you ever had a kind of a virtual work from home strategy. And I laughed. I was like, as in for a couple people? And they said, no, as in for the entire organization, including you. And of course I was like, well, that sounds, ridiculous. No, there's not that plan. We all work every day at Audigy, and we love it. And this is our home, right? And they said, well, it's Tuesday. You have until Thursday, and we want you to try shutting everything down and having everybody work remotely. And I'll never forget sitting there at my desk, thinking to myself, this can't be true. This can't really be happening. Shutting the entire company down. moving all of us in 2 different buildings, 30,000 plus square feet of corporate office space. No, I wanted to be like, I don't, obviously you just don't understand. And as I paused and I thought about it, I thought, okay, you're right. Maybe from a health perspective, let's try this. We'll give it a week, as they basically said. It might be 2. Well, that was March 12th, and we have not returned to the office. And so, as you can imagine, as the week started to go into April, I'm sitting here and realizing that we are facing something as a global economy, as society, that we've never faced before, and probably any of our lifetimes, and hopefully we'll never face again. We have built a business where it's been very intentional around that people, that process, and in return that product or those tools and deliverables, and now starting to kind of create this platform. And we've done really well in doing that. But we've never been tested like what we're about to be tested in. And as I sat here, to be frank, had some emotional nights trying to figure out what are you gonna do for your own team? How are you gonna navigate this, for our own culture? What about our families, and our Audigy member, base? How is all this gonna play out? And you realize that you have, no training, no business scenario or case to be able to reflect on or compare against. And so, ultimately, where do you go? And in that moment, I came back to what I really consider, a gift that each of us have, and that's our own, personal legend. And that is, we each are born with this incredible gift of our intuition, of our heart and our compassion, and our mind and our logic. And at times, I can get a little bit, I think, focused on maybe just, delivering on the logic side or the mindset perspective of here's the business need and here's what we need to execute. And sometimes I don't always take into account the intuition or some of the heart and some of the compassion. But sitting here in April at this very desk, having a very real moment of self-reflection, I came back and really just allowed myself to hear that intuition, my heart, and my mind speak to me in a way to where we realize that we have all the pieces of the puzzle, and that even if everything seems like it is, potentially, cracking or changing or possibly even falling apart, we still have us. We still have our teammates out there in our members' offices. We still have patients that are gonna need the gift of hearing. And so it was in that moment that we came back and said, okay, we can do this. Virtual, in the office, remote, call it whatever you want to call it. The heart and soul that exists in our members' offices hasn't changed. The heart and soul that exists in our Audigy family hasn't changed. The people that we had in February are still the people that we have today. The patients that we want to serve in February are still the patients that we want to serve today. So the only thing preventing us from being able to continue to do what we love to do is ourselves. Fast forward, we've gone to new virtual and remote care solutions for our members and their teammates and their practices to be able to operate off of. We grabbed ePatient and worked together as a collective organization to figure out how can we create a telehealth version or module with it as quickly as possible, and to try to move, initiatives and projects that may have taken us, quarters or even a year in weeks. And to see that level of partnership, to see that level of community come together with teammates, doing whatever it took in that moment to allow us to pivot. That level of commitment, that level of drive, it's powerful, right? And now in an environment that we continue to operate in virtually, I believe that we haven't missed a beat. That, the resilience that is out there in our teams when we're truly committed and invested in one another is extraordinary. That level of resilience, that level of commitment is coming because it's not just one person. We are rallying as an organization, as members, because of a movement that is a community, not a department or role or a target. So today, when you look at the services that we're offering, we've just finished our first round of virtual PFLs. We never thought that would occur. PFL is obviously something that we started back in 2008 at the Audigy corporate office, and it's always been a very personal experience. But today we are figuring out how to be able to deliver on that PFL commitment virtually. This virtual summit. We have hosted Team Summit for a lot of years now, and we've hosted Owner Summit since the very beginning. All of those events are extraordinary in the experience that they create. And never would we have thought before this moment in time that we could potentially host those virtually. But we are. Because that commitment is still there. It's crazy to look at the office and think that there's nobody there. And then it just sits there as a shell. But you also realize that that's just a building. It's just a bunch of brick and stucco. It's not us. And yet, in those moments, I attached us as in Audigy to that building. And what I realize is us as an Audigy is something that lives in a feeling, not in a physical asset. And in my own opportunity of being home, I've had an opportunity to reconnect with my own kids and with Ash. And there's this gift that I believe ultimately we're going to all hopefully have the opportunity to look back at in this experience and realize that we were able to see and experience things that we may never have been able to see before. And yes, there's been some absolute, hardships and some horrific times that we've had to navigate, and a lot of fear and challenges associated with that. But if we looked beyond that, just like for myself, I know that I'm a stronger, and better teammate, husband, father, and person coming out of this. And I hope all of us have been able to given ourselves that opportunity to really take that moment and reflect on what we can take away from this and realize that there's also a lot of good that came from this. In reflection over these last 6 months, the item that probably surprises me the most, and the item that in hindsight shouldn't surprise me at all, is how everyone came together. It really made me realize that we can and will get through this. And the surprise was, I think, in myself of remembering that this team that we've built, this culture, that's an investment. And if you hadn't been building that since day one, you don't start building culture during a pandemic. You don't start building team when things are hard or difficult. You start investing in those core areas every step of the way, and in return you create that momentum to where when a moment does come like this, it rocked our ship. It definitely threw us a few waves over our bow and shook us all up a little bit, but it didn't sink us. And now when I look at where we are, I'm truly inspired by our membership and our team. I will forever remember this period as probably one of our greatest moments. Even though we've had a lot of celebration in the history of Audigy, this to me will always stay with me for probably one of the greatest moments of Audigy's chapters that we've ever written, in a true testament to the character and the will of this organization. As we think about hearing healthcare, and we think about some of the continued product enhancements and the innovation that continues to occur, there's going to be disruption in our industry, right? There's going to be disruption in our vertical. Disruption in a way to where there's a lot of growth that's going to continue to come. Our challenge and our responsibility as independents is to understand that high tides raise all ships, and that how can we intentionally see a path of understanding where our opportunity is to both innovate and serve in part of that disruption, but also to cut new trails and serve something that maybe doesn't necessarily represent itself today as clearly as it could and needs to. We are 100% committed to continued product innovation and continued platforms and tools that we know are critical to your growth. In addition to that, there is a huge opportunity for continued expansion for Audigy. We are excited to see what has been, these last 4 years We've been able to bring on more members than we ever have in the history of the company. Today, Audigy represents the largest number of independent hearing care professionals, both in the hearing care community as well as in the otology and ear, nose, and throat community than we ever have before. We sit here and look at the fact that when it comes to the value that Audigy offers, there's still a lot of practices out there and a lot of teams that want to be able to achieve and be able to grow in the same way that you, our membership, are. So we're inspired by the opportunity to continue to serve each and every one of you as our Audigy membership. We also are looking at the next 3 to 5 years and realizing that we have the ability to continue to grow in a remarkable way and represent the leaders in our profession and the thought leaders to where we do believe we will absolutely be the largest remaining group in the hearing healthcare space in North America. And we're honored to be able to continue that journey with you. Ladies and gentlemen, members, coworkers, friends, and family, community of Audigy, my name is Mason Walker, and I'd like to welcome you to Audigy's 2020 Summit. Over the past 16 years, what started out as a dream of bringing people together in a common purpose has evolved into one of the strongest, wide-ranging, dynamic communities in all the hearing care space. To show our love for this community and a gratitude for you, our members, we want to make this year's summit a special experience with content and features never before available to attendees, including some of the following: the ability to engage live during the 3 core sessions with your fellow members as well as the presenters through engagement tools on both the Hub and Zoom platforms. The option to check out sponsor content, engage with their pages. And one of my favorite features is the photo booth, our ability to recognize our award winners who post their pictures on the event wall. And finally, you'll be able to engage with each other during the roundtable discussions. So ensure you have your camera on and be ready to share. I've also asked some members of the Audigy leadership team and other leaders in our industry to speak about various aspects of community. I'm excited to announce Aaron Brotherton, our new Vice President of Marketing. Aaron will lay out Audigy's marketing roadmap and discuss new methods for reaching and retaining your patients like never before. Director of People and Organizational Development, Keith Suits, will also discuss how do we reach our patient community through the patient select process. And later today, I'll sit down with leaders from our manufacturing partners to discuss the future of this professional community with them. Then tomorrow, we'll start things off with Audigy's founder and CEO, Brandon Dawson, who will talk about the key attributes of how to crush COVID and make the most of this new business environment. Then Vice President of Operations, the one and only Kim Gilmore, will take some time to go into the team community and how engaging with those inside your 4 walls leads to incredible results. SVU Regional Director, Jeremy Ruland, will explore what it is like to be a part of our member community and share how we win together. And finally, we'll close out this celebration of community with words from one of our biggest supporters, President of GN North America, Mr. Scott Davis. At Audigy, our goal is a simple one: to be the greatest resource our community of members could ever hope for, creating opportunity for each and every one of you to achieve your dreams, helping all of you fulfill your individual promise and realize your professional vision has always been our guiding principle and is that idea that continues to bind the Audigy community together today. Our successes are made sweeter by celebrating them together, and the hard times made more bearable by having others to help shoulder that burden. And there have been hard times lately. For most of us, I think I can say this past year has been probably one of the most traumatic and most stressful, as well as sometimes the most uncertain of years that any of us can collectively remember. Yet despite that uncertainty, despite some of that fear surrounding many aspects of our lives, we have found courage and counsel in one another in the Audigy community. You have proven once again, in the face of all new challenge, that this group is so much stronger than the sum of its parts. And it is that strength which allows us to adapt, persevere when time and circumstance force change upon us. We can't gather together for training events today. No problem. We'll develop a virtual Patients for Life and offer it to our members at no cost. You need how-to guides or wish you could just watch a webinar about everything from recruitment to how to set up your webcam for virtual appointments? We've got your back. We knew you would come back and come back strong. And that is why we built a bounce back checklist to help you get back to serving your patients and serving them quickly. We even created an entirely new telehealth platform. Whatever support you needed from us these past 6 months, we were here to ensure that we could give it to you and you ran with it. Through it all, you were there, working with us, contributing ideas, providing feedback, participating in key betas, and helping us help you. Proving that nothing can stop a community united in common pursuit of their personal, professional, and financial aspirations. But I don't need to tell you any of this. Everyone who's been on our virtual PFLs or has been on a weekly all-member call knows exactly what I'm talking about. Our global community may have been tested more than anyone could imagine possible. But we are a community, and that means we look out for one another and we move forward together, supporting each other regardless of what challenges we might face. So before I go, let me just say thank you. Thank you on behalf of your patients. Thank you on behalf of your teams. And thank you on behalf of every fellow member for taking the time and making a commitment to not give up or give in, but to always be willing to learn and to strengthen this community with your presence. I would also like to offer my sincere and personal thanks to the passionate, dedicated, and truly inspirational team of people who call themselves Audigy. From our shared service teammates, to the SBUs, to our internal IT support, and all of us here at the Audigy family. You're quite simply the greatest collection of individuals I could ever hope to work with. Without you, none of this, and I mean none of this, is possible. I'm humbled to lead you and honored to call you my colleagues. We have an incredible couple of days planned for all of you, and I hope everyone gains some key insights that you can take back home with you and come away with an appreciation of what an exceptional community we are all a part of. Thank you for your support. We couldn't be more excited to take this next step with you. Enjoy your summit. Godspeed.